And thanks for tuning in. You're watching live launch coverage of NASA and SpaceX's 7th rotational flight of astronauts and one cosmonaut to the International Space Station from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. NASA astronaut Jessica Meir has been with us over the past 3 hours, talking about Crew-7 as they have prepared for launch. Also talked a lot about science and a phenomenal number of other fascinating topics. We really appreciate you being here. We're now closing in on T-minus 1 hour until liftoff, and your thoughts on how we've done so far?
Things have been proceeding nominally, as we say in the space business. Things are looking good. The leak checks were good. Comm checks were good. The hatches closed. I think we're in good shape. And the weather, what did we say? A 95% favorable odds for weather. So looking good, and I'm feeling good about it tonight. What about you, Daryl?
Oh, I am feeling fantastic, and it's good. We both got the positive vibes going. You mentioned the weather. It's nearly perfect. Liftoff time still holding for 3:27 a.m. Eastern time and 27 seconds if you're right down to the second. We're tracking no issues with the Falcon 9 or Dragon, as Jessica mentioned. The range is green. Weather, good to go. Over the past 3 hours, we want to review now what our crew's been doing, and there you see them. Jasmine Mobelli, Andreas Mogensen, Satoshi Furukawa, and Konstantin Borisov. They have been getting ready to launch into space. Let's take a moment now to recap the overnight launch preparations. After waking up and having a meal, SpaceX helped the astronauts into their suits, as you can see right here at the historic quarters suit-up room. Then the crew, well, once they got their suits pressure tested, they walked right out of the same path that every NASA astronaut has done since Apollo 7, waving to family and loved ones after getting inside their Teslas with the gull-wing doors coming down. They joined a caravan led by Center Security on a 20-minute ride to Launch Complex 39A.
Big smiles all around.
All the way around. And then following their arrival to the pad, they got a look at their rocket, and in they went, walking across the crew access arm and right into their spacecraft. And those big smiles you mentioned, Jessica, we just saw them right there. Looks like the crew, they're good to go.
They truly are contagious, those smiles. It is difficult not to be smiling and excited when you know you are about to leave the planet for the first time for some of these, for Jasmine and for Konstantin as well.
Absolutely, and a lot of preparations have been brought to us at this point, including a dry dress. A lot of things have been going into this so to get everybody ready. Of course, we had a launch delay yesterday. We stood down for that attempt, but now we're good to go, and we expect to be launching at 3:27 and 27 seconds, our new T0. All systems good to go for launch. Now we want to have our
Dragon
team.
SpaceX, you are go for Section 5. When ready, report go for launch.
Dragon copies, go for Section 5.
Okay, and with that call out at this time, we're going to expand our coverage. We'd like to welcome in SpaceX and NASA commentators joining us live from Hawthorne, California, where the SpaceX mission team is located. Welcome to Jesse and Leah.
Thanks, Daryl, and hello to everyone watching around the world. I'm Leah Cheshire with NASA Communications.
And I'm Jesse Anderson, an Integration and Test Engineering Manager here at SpaceX. Leah and I are joining you today from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, as we count down to liftoff of Crew-7 just under an hour from now.
And of course, Crew-7 is our 7th operational mission with SpaceX, flying astronauts for long-duration missions to the International Space Station, but it also comes with an important first. Crew-7 is the first mission in which every seat in the spacecraft is filled with a crew member from a different international partner agency. Represented are NASA, ESA, the European Space Agency, JAXA, or the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, and Roscosmos. It's also the first time an ESA astronaut has served as pilot of Dragon, so Andreas Mogensen is adding that to his list of accomplishments.
The Dragon flying today will be making its 3rd trip to station, having previously supported Crew-3 and Crew-5. And much like on those missions, our teams will be staffed around the clock in mission control, which is just behind us, to monitor Dragon and the mission, not just today, but throughout the entire mission, from liftoff to Crew-7's arrival at the space station, all the way through splashdown when the astronauts return back home to Earth. On console or headset and mission control are 6 key
SpaceX
Our
copies.
6
Crew
key
7 is
positions.
go for launch.
The mission director is in charge of the room and tasked with making real-time decisions to ensure mission success. The person that you may hear talking to the astronauts, which we just heard a few seconds ago, is the crew operations and resources engineer, who you'll hear us refer to as the core throughout the broadcast. And the 4 additional team members are focused on vehicle systems, including avionics, navigation and control, software, propulsion, life support, and communication with ground support teams. Apart from Mission Control, our Falcon 9 team is currently located in the Launch and Landing Control Center at Hangar X. With less than an hour until launch, they are settling in for final checkouts, propellant loading, and for launch.
And of course, NASA has its own team members at NASA's Mission Control Center in Houston, Texas, who have been preparing the International Space Station for Dragon's arrival. They recently gave their go for launch and confirmed the station is ready to receive Dragon and the new crew. Now, upon liftoff, today's flight to the space station will take almost 30 hours, with Dragon flying autonomously the entire way. And just like autopilot on a commercial aircraft, the crew always has the ability to take manual control of the spacecraft if needed.
It continues to be a smooth countdown, and we're looking good for an on-time liftoff. Coming up at T-minus 45 minutes, the team will report their readiness for propellant load with a final go-no-go poll. In the meantime, NASA's Courtney Beasley is going to help us take a closer look at
propellant load and launch go-no poll. Go-no-go polls open at 55.80, procedure 1.160.
Thanks, Jesse. I'm here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room in Mission Control, Houston. What we have our sights set on today is low Earth orbit, which you'll sometimes hear us refer to as LEO. This is classified as orbits around Earth that are 1,200 miles or lower. There are a lot of satellites in this orbit, including the Hubble telescope and, of course, today's destination, the International Space Station. The space station's orbit averages at 260 miles above Earth, but varies based on its apogee or perigee, the highest and lowest points of its orbit. Being that the space station is 260 miles above Earth, crew members are too far away to make things out like cars, people, or buildings, but they can see other landmarks around the world, and the long camera lenses they use help them zoom in on familiar sights of our home planet. NASA astronaut Steve Bowen captured Cape Canaveral on Florida's Atlantic coast earlier this month, near Cape Canaveral Space Force Station and NASA's Kennedy Space Center, where Crew 7 is launching from today. The contrast of the colors between the Indian River and Atlantic Ocean become much more pronounced from space. And here's a beautiful nighttime shot of the city lights of Mecca in the desert valley of western Saudi Arabia, captured by NASA astronaut Woody Hoberg on July 26th. Human presence on Earth becomes much easier to see at night. And this final image was captured by NASA astronaut Frank Rubio of Vadima Lake, one of the largest in Argentina, on May 7th. Each of these images are taken from the vantage point of the International Space Station that orbits roughly 260 miles above Earth. Satellites collect imagery of Earth too, of course, but the International Space Station is unique in seeing these viewing opportunities because astronauts and cosmonauts can tell scientists on the ground what they're observing and what stands out in real time. We can't wait to see what Crew 7 captures, but for now, we'll send it back to Hawthorne. Jesse and Leah.
SpaceX's ultimate mission is to make life multiplanetary. To get us there, we've been developing a fully and rapidly reusable transportation system called Starship, the most powerful launch vehicle system ever developed and designed to carry passengers and cargo to Earth orbit, the moon, and planetary destinations like Mars. In fact, earlier today, the team completed a successful static fire of our Super Heavy Booster 9, an exciting step towards our next Starship flight test. But you have to learn to walk before you can run, or should I say fly. And our learning started with Dragon, designed from the beginning to transport both people and cargo to space. The Dragon hanging from the ceiling behind us was initially flown to certify SpaceX for cargo missions to the space station.
Dragon launched to space in December 2010 and became the first private spacecraft to return from orbit. 2 years later, Dragon became the first commercial spacecraft to deliver cargo to and from the space station, and in 2020, as we remember well, became the first private crewed spacecraft to reach the International Space Station.
All